Moving on to our next story, and vicars have urged the Church of England to scrap wedding fees in order to encourage couples to get married. Currently, it costs couples around £560 if they marry away from home and £512 to marry in their own parish. So, should these costs go all together so more people tie the knot? Let's get the views of Father Felix Smith. Father Felix, thank you for joining us on a Friday night. We both know that marriage is a good thing and it's a blessing. Should we encourage it with free weddings?
Well, that's the idea that's being put forward by the Diocese of Blackburn for General Synod, which is coming up on Tuesday. And the idea is that if you lower or you scrap the fees for weddings, then suddenly lots of couples will be wanting to come forward and be married. But I'm not sure really that that's going to happen. As if couples are coming in, they're looking at the fees and they're thinking, well, shall I go for a church wedding or shall I go for a registry office, and one costs more than the other? I think if they want to get married in a church, then they know they want to get married in the church. And I think the price isn't going to make a huge amount of difference to that. They'll know they want to get married in a church because they have a connection to a church, they have a personal faith, or they've got an idea of what a church wedding looks like, and therefore they'll want to be involved in that. You know, fewer couples are getting married in general. You know, we know that from across society. So I think this idea that suddenly if we lower the fees or we scrap the fees completely, suddenly couples will be flocking to get married, I think is just not likely to happen. We've had fewer baptisms over time as well, you know, the rise of secularism and so on. And I think, you know, that's not been to do with cost. They've always been free. So, yeah, I think this idea that suddenly couples will come flocking to the church because weddings are cheaper or free, I think is very unlikely.
And, of course, hard-pressed parish priests do need the cash, don't they?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're a very poor parish where we are. We're growing in numbers, but financially it's still always very difficult. And we've got, of course, bills to pay and everything else. I think probably last year we made about £2,500 from wedding fees. It's not a huge amount, but it does make a difference. And it's often the smallest and the prettiest churches that are bringing in fees for weddings that wouldn't be making those fees from other places, perhaps. And if we scrap those fees, who's going to pay for the heating and the lighting and, you know, the organist and all those sort of things that go into it? You know, who's going to plug that gap that will really be missing from the fees? Apparently, you know, the diocese, that's one suggestion, dioceses might be able to come together and sort of plug that gap. But, you know, they've not really been very quick to do that in the past financially, so it seems unlikely to me.
Finally, Father Felix, as you well know, you can find love on your smartphone, which is why Mrs. Dolan locks this one. But do you wonder whether the institution of marriage will survive all of this modernity and all of the freedom at our disposal?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult thing. Like we said, you know, fewer and fewer couples are getting married. And it's for other reasons rather than just to do with finance. I mean, I've been in ministry for 10 years now, and I've only ever had one couple come and say, well, you know, this looks very expensive to me. I think we might have to wait. Other couples, I think, actually, when they come, they say, you know what, this is incredibly cheap, because the average cost for a wedding is about £17,000. To spend £500 on a church service is hardly anything. Most of them are spending more on photography or other items rather than the service itself. And, you know, hotels are offering packages for £4,000 or £5,000. And so for us to charge £500, I don't think makes a huge difference. I think you're right in that it's other factors that are leading to fewer and fewer weddings happening sort of across the country in churches and outside churches as well.
Father Felix, next time I get married, you've got the gig.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Father Felix Smith, thank you so much for joining us. There you go. Those weddings are worth the cash, and we know how local parishes are struggling, and I'm sure they would miss that £500.